All right, welcome back. Today we have Coach Cornell. He is the head football coach at Quincy Notre Dame High School in good old Quincy, Illinois. Coach, thanks for being here.
I appreciate it, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
I actually coached against Quincy Notre Dame. I think the year before you took the job, it would have been 2017.
Yep.
I was at Charleston, Illinois. We had to drive all the way to Quincy Notre Dame, and that was like a 4 hour drive to get
Yeah.
over there.
Well,
Like,
we did that my first year. We repaid that and came to Charleston that year. So yeah, very familiar driving across the state. Not a very scenic trip for sure.
oh no, no, it's literally going from the one side of the state all the way to the other. Uh,
Yeah.
I got to ride, me and another coach rode in his truck there. We didn't have to we took charter buses. And I was like, I still don't even want to sit on that damn charter bus. So the other coach was like, hey, I bought a brand new truck 2 weeks ago. I'm taking it. I'm like, I'm hopping in with you. And we just went.
Heck yeah.
And your guys' turf and stuff, I think it just got put in that year. So it was like still freshly done, like the whole stadium.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, we're walking on the field. Our smart, lovely angels have like sunflower seeds, and that
Uh-oh.
AD freaked
Oof.
out. And we had to
Yeah.
apologize. I apologized like a million times. I said, one, I wasn't on the bus, so I had no control. I'm not the head coach either. I was like, two,
Yeah.
I apologize. We don't have turf. These kids don't know. And he's having to pick up the sunflower seeds. I'm like, oh my God. So we're helping him pick them up. And I'm like, oh, we look like a bunch of hillbillies walking in here.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about seeds and turf, but I mean, it's just hard to get those things up. But yeah, I mean, if you want to see any athletic administrator get fired up, just start spitting sunflower seeds on any kind of turf, and that'll get them going for sure.
Oh yeah. And then you could tell me to shut up if you take offense to this. I had to go, I was the OC and I went up on top of the box. One, that ladder is not big person friendly.
That's no, that's a fact. You're not going to catch me up there, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, because I'm like you're a big guy. I'm 6'5", like 270, 280, and you're like, this is not big person friendly. And then
Yeah.
it slants a little bit. So you're just kind of like, once I found my spot where I didn't feel like I was moving, I was like, I'm right here with my thing. I was like, I'm right here and I'm not moving. And
Yeah.
the funny thing was the other guy up there with me is 6'6", like 280 pounds. So we're both up there like, all right, how long till we fall through this thing? Like that's
I mean, the guys in that box can just hear every movement going on above them. I mean, it's yeah, I of course we love our facilities and it's home to us. And when I grew up here in Quincy, that was what that's what it looked like. Obviously, it was grass when I was playing on it, but it was that press box. It was those
oh,
bleachers,
okay.
behind the school right there. So it means a lot to a lot of people. But yeah, it's certainly not. It's not very new up there for sure. We've had that for quite some time, and we did get some air conditioning and a heater unit in there. Now we've got this nice digital scoreboard, so we've got some
Uh-huh.
electronics in there that we got to keep weather protected. But
Right.
up top, it's treacherous for sure.
Yeah, I've been in way where don't worry, way, way worse. It was just
Oh yeah,
I think it threw me off guard when you saw the great facilities that just got done, like the concession stand, the turf, like you're looking at it, and then you get up there and you're like, wait a minute. And so I look at the guy and I was like, oh, don't worry, they'll update this next year or something because it's just a process. And I saw a picture of your guys' team. I'm like, oh no, it's the same one. I
oh
could
yeah, yep,
the
100%.
worst one was like a deer stand. We had to climb up like a telephone pole and it just stuck out to the side. And I remember getting up there and the wind started and you start doing this. And I went back down. I looked at the coach. I was like, no,
Yeah,
nope. He
calling
goes,
this one from the sideline today, Coach.
yeah. He's like, oh, you gotta get back up there. And I was like, no, no, because if it starts, because I think a storm was coming. I was like, I'm the tallest person. I'm gonna get hit with lightning up here, and the wind's doing this. No. So your
Yeah,
guys is yours is paradise compared to that. I was like, nope, nope, getting back down.
I mean that's just high school football, right? You never know what you're going to get into when you go to an away game that a place that you've never been to before, and it feels such like a luxury for our coaches that go up top when they are inside of a box for a
Uh-huh.
game. It's like, man, I mean, you guys are first class all the way, and but it's always going to be something different, a different experience, but it's always unique to that community and unique to that school, which I think is what makes our sport at our level great.
Yeah. Because my high school, super small. I went to Oakwood High School right by Danville in Champaign. And they had to just share the press box, I think, my freshman year, like both opponents. Well, then someone volunteered on the visitor side to build literally wooden steps to go way up high into their own little box, just built it themselves. And it looks awesome. It's just wood, but it's just awesome. Like,
Hmm.
oh, someone just volunteered to build it. I'm like, well, that's the small town thing. They're just like, you know what? I'm bored. I'm gonna go build this for the school. They let him in for free for a year, like for the game, because he built it, and it was just awesome.
Yeah,
That's small town football. That's high school football, where it's like that's it. And then you come up to the suburbs here, and I tell people that, and they're like, "That's real hillbilly-ish," and I'm like, "You guys don't even get it. Don't. It's what."
that's small town USA. Yeah, the team needs something, the school needs something, the people in the community will step up to help out, and that certainly has been our experience at QND and here in Quincy. I mean, it's like I said, that's what makes us great. And I think, I don't have much experience up north in the big city, obviously, but I can appreciate everybody's community when it comes to especially their high school football program and coming out and supporting and doing whatever they can to help the team be successful.
Right. Because like I said, I grew up in Oakwood. I went to EIU, coach at Charleston for a long time. My now wife is from the suburbs. She got a job, so we moved up here in 2018, and it's so hard to get adjusted to. I still do it every day, like driving on the 4-lane roads. You're like, what the hell is this? I'm used to my 1-lane road or my 2-lane road. Um, but the funny thing is there's some schools here that are big time, but you also get that small town feel, even though you have thousands of more people, it still feels sometimes like small town football to some places up here. So it's very weird up here. It's split.
Hmm.
It's, oh, I can tell you have all the money or you guys are whatever. Then this school, even though there's 2,000 kids in the school, it still feels like small town football. Like this is all they got. Or sports. I
Hmm.
should just say sports. It's like small town sports. Um, and so I gravitate more towards that than the political side of all the other big schools. I'm like, you guys do your
Yeah,
thing. I'm going to do this because
yeah,
being from small town USA, I have different viewpoints than you. So I'm going over here. You stay over there.
yeah. That's fair enough.
Um, so you mentioned you went to Quincy Notre Dame High School. Then
Hmm.
you went to my favorite school, Illinois, because you're by
Yeah,
Champaign. I grew up by Champaign, so I'm a U of I fan, obviously. What was that experience like going from playing high school football to U of I? The recruiting process way back then is way different than it is now.
yeah, yeah.
So
It
what was
really
that
is.
like?
Yeah, I grew up always loving football. Football was such a big part of my identity, and I was lucky enough growing up Catholic here in Quincy. I knew that my parents was going to send me to QND, and I was going to have a Catholic education. And growing up, our high school football team was really good. Bill Cornell, who I played for and who I took over for and who I still work for, um, built a culture in this town that just had the Catholic kids gravitating towards QND football. And when I got there, there were several players who had went on to play college football before me. Maybe not at a big time level like that. It had been several years since that had happened, but it was always a goal of mine to want to play at QND and then want to play in college. And I growing up, which I think many people do, you think all I got to do is work really, really hard, and I'm going to get a D1 offer, and you don't realize that that's certainly part of it. It's a big part, but of course, the biggest part is you got to have a genetic skill set to play at that level. You got to be a certain size. You got to be able to run fast. And through some experiences early in my life, figured that was a genetic skill set that I had. My dad wasn't a football player. Don't really have a lot of football in my family. My grandfather played way back in the day, and he was recruited to play actually for Iowa, but he grew up during a time where when you grow up Catholic, you go to a Catholic college,
Uh-huh.
and so thankfully for my bloodline, he didn't go to Iowa. But when I was my junior year, I was a starting right tackle and had a good season. Ended up getting named All State in every newspaper in Illinois, and thought maybe there could be something to this. Had gone to some camps and performed really well, so started to get some offers to some Division I schools. And like you said at the time, it was very different than what it is now. Even technology back then, I still had a little Motorola flip phone back then, working the T9 texting, which you and I know exactly what that is. Your younger viewers may not, but um, coaches, there were some rules on how much they could text you and call you. um, there certainly was dead periods at the time back then, but would be texting back and forth between myself and coaches on that flip phone. And Had several offers, really wanted to go to Florida, was really where I'd grown up a Gator fan my whole life and I had gone to some camps down there and had played really well. Before my senior year, when I was looking to get an offer from them, went down and had a good camp. And there was a set of twins from Lakeland, Florida that was there the same day. And they were at the time were committed to Florida State. And so I thought it was a pretty good chance that I was going to get an offer from Florida. Well, at some point on that trip, they decommit from Florida State and they commit to Florida, and then they go on and have tremendous careers there. Their last names, by the way, are Pouncey.
Yeah.
So two all pro players. I think Urban Meyer may have got that recruiting one right. Um, but I really, for me, it had boiled down to Illinois. Obviously, Ron Zook had recruited me, and Tom Sims was my recruiting coach at the time. Michigan State is actually where I had originally committed to before my senior season. Was going to play for John L. Smith. Coach Stalin, who's now the O-line coach for the Eagles, he and I had a really good relationship. I really liked Jeff Stoutland a lot. They didn't have the season that they had hoped for and let John L. Smith go, and then decided to reopen my recruiting. Went on a visit to Nebraska. Bill Callahan was the head coach at the time. Liked it, but just didn't seem like a good fit. Had always wanted to go to Illinois, but it just wasn't, didn't seem like a very sexy pick. It's kind of embarrassing to say that now, but
Right.
that was important back then. But you know, when they started to really do a good job in recruiting, that 2007 class, which I'm sure you remember, had a lot of heavy hitters in that class.
Yeah.
Aurelius Ben, Martez Wilson, Josh Brent, D'Angelo McCray. There was a lot of guys there that were 4-5-star guys that you could tell they were doing something really special. And Tom Sims, even after I committed to Michigan State, said, look, we're going to still recruit you because we want you. And that meant a lot to me. And Ron Zook said the same thing when he came and sat on my couch. And had taken officials to Michigan State, Illinois, Nebraska, and at the end of the day, just felt like Illinois was home. I mean, it was people that really saw the world the same way that I did. It wasn't that far away from where I grew up, and you could tell that they were on the up and up. I mean, they had some close games in that 2006 season. They had a really close game against Ohio State at home against Troy Smith, who won the Heisman that year. You could tell they were on their way.
Right.
And then, when I got there, specifically from going from high school to college, I mean, was a tremendous jump in talent and intensity, obviously. I probably wasn't as ready for that jump as much as I was when I went from college to the NFL. But, I still tell my players to this day, I mean, my first 2 days of practice in college, I didn't think that I belonged. I didn't think that I was good enough. I didn't think that I was going to make it. I mean, I was slow, didn't really grasp the offense. The things that I'd always done well, being a physical football player, I could still do, but it was just you didn't really understand what you were doing when you couldn't play as fast. So I had a lot of, had to talk myself up and, survive that first training camp at Rantoul. I mean, that was, just a total life-changing experience that it certainly slowed down as the year went on. Played scout team against that defense in 2007. And I mean, all those guys, the Jay Lamans, the Britt Millers, the world. I mean, those guys are still very good friends to this day. So we had a lot of fun that 2007 season. I was redshirted that year, so I got to kind of be best of both worlds. But my recruiting obviously was they found me. I went to camps and tried to get as much exposure as I could, and wanted to play college football. Found an opportunity and went and did it. And when I got there, obviously had a lot of learning to do, had a lot of growing up to do. I was very immature. I was very childish in a lot of things that I did. And like everybody is when they go to college, right? And you got to find yourself. And I did. And I was very fortunate to find very good friends there still. I consider brothers to this day, and make it over there for games and practices and stuff. And it's awesome. So it's very much a big part of who I am today. And very thankful for the opportunity to get to do that and to have the success that we did. I mean, obviously, you see behind me, we went to 3 bowl games when I was there. So I don't know how many football players at Illinois can say that, and not many can say that they won back-to-back bowl games, unfortunately. But I think what Coach Bielema is doing right now, I like the trajectory that we're going. Obviously, we didn't have the year that we wanted to this year, but I think when you can get big, strong linemen like he's bringing in, I think that's what made us successful. You get these good linemen that come in. We had a lot of NFL guys that played up front with us, and
Right.
I think the more guys like that you bring in, that's how you're going to find success.
Yeah, you said a lot there that I'm gonna revisit back to, so bear with me because
Yeah,
first thing is you gotta tell Mr. Lehman to message me back because he's like, yeah, I'll do your podcast, and I can't talk to him for 2 years. You can never get that guy.
I'll put in a good word for you, no doubt.
Well, because like I said, I grew up right by Champaign, so we knew it all. So when I started this, I sent him a message. He goes, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then like a year goes by, and I keep messaging and nothing. Then this shit next year, hey, you still want to do it? Yeah, yeah. He just
Yeah, yeah, I put a good word in for you, but I mean that's him personally. I mean, he was a guy that he was a senior that year when I was a freshman, and the way that he lived life was not the same. Was not a very typical college way of living. I mean, he's very very religious, very devout, and
yeah,
lives that way, and I
yeah.
admire that deeply about him. But and that guy, we had a lot of fun. I guess I'll just leave it at that. But
Oh yeah, I
but
can
like I
imagine.
said, I'll put a good word in for you. Yeah,
No, no, I appreciate it. I wanted to be funny there for a second, but then oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. But anyway, yeah, I remember I walked on to EIU and I wanted people to know this. I was 6'5", 270, and they're like, "You're too small." And I that was the first time I think I've been told I was too small for something. And so
yeah,
that college world is just even at Eastern at the time, Spoo was the head coach. That was back when everybody ran power, like like the power run game, like that's all we're gonna do. Even their linemen were like 310 pounds. And I just couldn't fathom like, my senior year of high school, I got to 300 pounds. Like I was like, I'm gonna be big. But then the problem was my body couldn't handle like how to move. Like everything
Mhm.
was just a step slower. Everything was heavy, and then I lost a lot of weight. Here's an amazing story for you, and you won't believe me. I was 300 pounds. I hurt my back and my knee, so I couldn't really lift. I could play, but I just couldn't lift. Like lifting was just gonna kill me. Played basketball. I got down to 215, like lost everything. And,
Wow,
and so then I had to lift as hard as I could for that summer to go walk on. I was like, I was that stupid kid that said, "Hey, it's Division 1, AA, or one or bust. I'm not going Division 2. I'm not going Division 3." And you're just this stupid kid. I'm 6'5" and I can go play. And I go to walk on. I'm like, oh, this is what this is. Like, oh,
yeah,
there's something more than the state of Illinois. This kid's from Florida and he's 270 pounds, but runs a 4.9, 840. And you're like, oh, I run like a 5. Oh,
yeah,
like this ain't
which is
gonna.
a big difference. Yeah.
Um, but
And
I remember,
that probably was my experience too. Is that you grow up in your town and your community, and yeah, you do well, and you think, shoot, that's I'm it, and yeah,
right.
you meet these guys from Florida, from Texas, California, and even from other parts of the Midwest. You're like, okay, there's some guys
Yeah.
out here now.
Oh, yeah. That you would have thought I would have learned before because before I went to Eastern's camp and I went to Northern Illinois, you would have thought I learned then because there was huge guys.
Yeah,
And me and this my friend who played, we were the bottom of the totem pole. And the reason why did I not figure this out? I don't know. We were purple, like our colors were purple. They didn't know us by name. They said, "Hey, Big Purple, come here." Like that was
here's your sign. We don't know you by name, man.
yeah.
You're not high up on the list. Yeah,
So when you're
I'd say yeah. Go ahead.
oh no, sorry, I was like when you're 16 or 17 years old, you're just like waddling over there. You're like, well, I'm just glad to be here. Like you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I had that experience that the Florida camp that I told you about. I went to that before my junior year, and because I'd always wanted to go to Florida and wanted to see what it was like. And my dad said, "Look, if this is where you want to go, you need to go test yourself against these guys." And
Right.
seeing the cats they had down there, I mean, I went against this guy that at the time going against him, my dad swears the kid was 19 years old. I mean, he probably
Yeah,
was. Who knows? But
who
I
knows?
mean, he ran me over so quick. It was like, oh my god. And I mean, we play good teams at QND, but obviously we're not playing anybody that could pass as a 19-year-old. I mean, this
Right.
was it was a different deal. But yeah, that's one thing I tell our guys now when they start to get recruited. It's like this is a process. You got to do some work on the front end to introduce yourself to these guys, and then when you go see them in person, you got to perform. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
job interview, and that's exactly what this is. Like we love high school football so much because it's football in its purest form. I mean, it's you're
Right.
doing this because you love it. You're doing it with guys that you grew up with your brothers. And then once you start to get in that recruiting process, it changes because it goes from a game to a business. And
Right.
it's there's still obviously that football part of it in college and even in the NFL, but it's just so much of a business that you got to look out for yourself, but you also got to play the game. And now with Twitter and how technology can get these kids in touch with them, and not only that, but now they can see who else is out there. Right? When you
Right.
and I were getting recruited, we only knew what Edgy Tim was posting and who those guys were. I mean, you
Mhm.
can't now you can find these guys and who you're playing against and where they're going and what they're doing. And it's now it's difficult because these kids are always going to compare themselves to each other. And that's a challenge. Maybe that's a blessing that we didn't have to grow up in that type of era. I mean, I believe me, I thank God that I didn't grow up in a Twitter era. I mean, I'd have probably said some stupid stuff that would have got me canceled later in life. Who knows, But
Oh yeah.
it's definitely totally different. But still the foundation is still the same. I mean, you got to have the work ethic. You got to be an athlete. You got to be able to do what it is that you're coached to do, and those type of fundamentals will never change.
Yeah. Well, I would have gotten in trouble, I think, if Snapchat, Twitter, and
Oh
all
my
that.
God, yeah,
Like
yeah,
we had MySpace, but even MySpace, you just were not. It was just people don't know
still
what
very
MySpace
limited.
is. Oh yeah, like it
Right.
was. What's your music going to be in your background? I think that was about it.
I was going to say, unless you're making some kind of political statement with the music you're picking, I don't know how else you're going to get in trouble on MySpace. But
Or AIM instant messenger, like that was the other one, like the
yeah,
dial up, the do, and you're like, oh, it's taking me 5 minutes to log on. Today's taking me 10
kids
minutes.
kids these days don't know, man. They get upset when their web browser doesn't load in 2 seconds. They don't know what it's like having to sit there and wait 10 minutes while you attach to the internet, and then oh by the way, you can't make any phone calls after you do that, or it's going to boot you off. So
Oh yeah, or the mom or dad, get off the computer. I got to call somebody, like that type of thing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
or getting the newspaper just to see what the other teams did in the area,
yeah.
like that type. Like I think that's why I didn't know anybody. You just got the newspaper and you're just looking at. For me, it was just I'm gonna look at Champaign. It was a Champaign Danville. You looked at a little bit of like Tolono Unity. Like it kind of went a big circle. That was it. Like
Yeah,
now you could watch the news, but like after a football game, kids, you either went out or you went to bed. It was one of the two. You
yeah.
had to watch and see who won. You had to get the newspaper. You had to look at the stats, keep newspaper clippings. Like your parents would keep stuff. Kids don't have that. They have to find it online. And they're like, well, I don't have to print this off. It's just here forever. Like I don't
It's
have
gonna
to worry.
send me a link. Yep,
Yeah,
I'll
send me
save
a
the
link.
link forever. That's all I need.
They don't know about walking down, like the parents, even non-football. Hey, walk down there. Here's 50 cents. Go grab some newspapers. Like they don't remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And I'm only 33 years old and I still remember all that.
yeah.
Like they don't
34.
know.
Remember that as well. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah, they don't know. So this will be a tricky question. So hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. You didn't walk on. Sorry, I walked on. You went to Illinois. You got recruited. You got there. You mentioned you got there. You had to work really hard, like a little extra harder to pick up everything and be there. Um, Today's world is the transfer portal. So if that happens to people, they might tend to leave in the college world. Um, do you take pride in that you stuck it out and like fought through and got some success and did all that? Or do you think maybe you might have transferred? I don't even know. Like I've never been in that thought process before.
Yeah, no, I actually really appreciate this question because I am very proud of the fact that I, signed a letter of intent to the University of Illinois, and that's where I graduated from. And that's the only place that I played. I think that I had opportunities where I certainly questioned, like I said, if I was good enough to be here. There were times even after that first year where I wasn't really getting a chance to play as much as I thought I deserved.
Right.
And growing up in Quincy, there's a lot of schools around here. Obviously, Western Illinois is right down the street at Macomb.
Yeah.
QU is right here in town. Quincy University, Culver Stockton across the river. Um, and I actually had the conversation one time. I was home with my parents, and I was just disgruntled. I wasn't happy, and I said, I maybe this isn't where I want to be. And my dad asked me, he's like, where are you going to go? And I said, well, I mean, maybe I can go to Western. He's like, I mean, that's just no. I mean, that'd be a horrible decision. And that's nothing against Western. I think it's a great place and they've got great people. But I think what he was getting at there was that, you have set yourself up to be in this place at the University of Illinois, a tremendous institution, to get a tremendous degree and play in Big Ten football, and you're going to walk away before you even really have a chance to see that through.
Mhm.
And which I appreciated. I mean, I went back. I had to keep battling, had to keep fighting, which is something that I'm going to have to do forever and ever. And um, I'm very glad that I did that because I was able to start as a junior and a senior. My senior year, I was voted a captain from my teammates, and was very blessed to be on three very successful teams in this program's history. So
Right.
now, obviously, when kids come and go, there's a myriad of reasons why kids would come and go. I can remember. I'm sure you remember Jay Prosh, right? The
Mhm.
fullback from Mobile, Alabama, one of my very good friends in college. And, his mother unfortunately passed away from cancer when he was a sophomore. And obviously a traumatic experience for him and his family. And he didn't really know, if he needed to be at Illinois anymore after that. And was able to transfer to Auburn and finished out his career there before he was drafted by the Texans. But
Mhm.
I think that there's reasons like that I think are easier for folks to wrap their head around to say, okay, maybe this kid does need to go closer to home,
Right.
because um, Alabama was where he was from, and that is what's best for him and his family. But these guys that they end up going somewhere and they're there for a semester and then they leave after that, they're not really giving themselves a chance. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for guys that graduate from the school that they originally signed out of high school. I get that that's not going to be 100% deal. And that's not to say that the guys that do transfer aren't good football players or have their priorities out of line. It's just that I would love to see more people sign at one place and graduate from there. That type of loyalty and that type of commitment, that's what's going to help take you to places in life. Like, as you and I know, I mean, football is such a brief part, just a brief moment of our lives. We can only play
Right.
this game for so long. And then when it's done, it's done. We're lucky enough that we get to coach now. We still at least get to play. And
Right.
yeah, coaches will come and go, but coaches can also get fired at any moment too. Which I think that when you start to, talk about transfer portal and NIL stuff and paying these guys as though they're professionals, and you're going to start to treat these guys like professionals. And it's not going to be, I think, what a lot of these folks signed up for initially, and I think that, like I said, there's probably some merit to the ability to transfer, but it just seems like the Wild West right now with what
Yeah.
schools are able to offer NIL, and you don't like some place, you can go somewhere else. And I don't know how many guys are sitting in the transfer portal right now, but I think every college in America starts on Tuesday. So if you don't have a place yet, you're not going to have one. So it just doesn't seem like, it seems like a very high risk, low reward scenario to want to go into the portal. But anyway, I had chances where I thought, maybe this isn't where I want to be, and I stuck it out. And I think that, just that decision built a little bit more grit into my life, which then I could pass on to other people.
Right. And I don't want to, I mean, we could jump down that rabbit hole as far as we want. It would be hours. But I remember, like, even when, because I was in high school when you were at U of I, but like watching those teams. I think the reason why U of I had so much success during those times is all you guys stayed together, and it was just like of a grind of like it's gonna burst, then goes to the Rose Bowl, then goes to these other bowls. When this transfer portal's happening, it's like a flash in the pan. Like, okay, they're gonna do something right now, and then you can't really build that group together and like work together. Like that defense with Jay Lehman, them, you could just tell they could communicate with each other, like call whatever they wanted. Offensively, we all knew like, hey, Juice Williams is going to do his thing, and like the offensive line just going to push people around, and you knew what was happening the next year because nobody was leaving because that wasn't a thing. Now it's what are they going to do next year? What are they going to look like next year? Type of thing. And that's why I love talking to college coaches. They'll tell me the real of like what's going on in this transfer portal. And they like it due to the fact that they can get older guys in and do something, but they also are tired because how do they keep kids here? You never know when they're going to leave. They could up and leave when almost whenever during those periods. Um, I talked to Coach Rodriguez, he's the line coach at Akron last year. He goes, I've never been more tired. I had to replace like 3 or 4 offensive linemen from the portal. He was like, it's great because if they leave, you don't have to bring a freshman into play. You could just replace them. But they also
Yep.
like building up freshmen and sophomores. So they are just kind of all over the place right now. But I think that's why you guys were finally got U of I some successes because it just stayed as a core group. And you don't see that
Yeah,
as much anymore with the big schools. Now, U of I doesn't lose a lot of kids. They're going to stay. Those type of schools. But the Alabamas of the world, not Alabamas, but like those other schools, they lose kids left and right.
Florida State, right? I
Florida
mean, all
State.
these guys from Florida State who are jumping ship and going somewhere else. I mean, it's got to be exhausting. I coached college football for 1 year as Culver Stockton's offensive line coach and their strength coach, and had helped out at Quincy University as a volunteer coach for a couple of seasons before that when I was first getting into coaching. Working the recruiting on that was fun and interesting. It was interesting to me because I'd only really had the big school recruiting experience. I didn't know
Right.
how discount rates worked and how you package scholarships together and all that. And that experience for me now was great because now obviously I got more guys that are getting recruited at schools that size and bigger, so I'm able to give them some better advice. But we would try to get a couple of JUCO kids,
Mhm.
and you get some JUCO guys, and maybe you hit it big with them, but you're also, I think, to your point, you're getting some of their bad habits that they had
Mhm.
coming in. Whereas you sign a high school kid, you can build that dude up, you can develop him into something down the road. And for us, I mean, I give a lot of credit to Coach Zook for doing that. The culture that he built,
Yeah.
he was a tough coach to play for. He was intense, he was fiery, and he wanted things done his way. And a lot of times it rubbed some guys on the team the wrong way. But now looking back at it, I'm so grateful to have had him in my life because of what he was able to do and the guys that he was able to recruit and bring in and retain. And we didn't have unbelievable facilities. We had a new weight room my sophomore year that was really nice. And I love telling people, everybody now has the inlay platforms in their weight rooms now, right? We were the first actually to have the inlay platforms in our floor. I'll never forget our strength coach telling us that we're the first ones to ever do that. So, we kind of had some facilities, but I mean, we had guys that just enjoyed being around each other, enjoyed playing football. Uh, Perhaps some of the toughness and intensity that Zook had galvanized us in a way,
Right.
right?
Right.
But I wouldn't have traded that for the world. And now, as a high school coach now, uh, our guys are still getting recruited. Like, I don't know if it's really affected our guys that much. We haven't had a real Division I talent here in some time. I think we've got some coming up, but um, not only do you got to recruit a kid once now, but now you got to keep recruiting him
Yep.
when the season's over every year, year after year. And of course, recruiting is part of the job. So nobody feels bad for a college coach because he has to recruit. I mean, that's what he gets paid, all the money they get paid to do. Um, but to constantly have to prove yourself and not spend time developing a guy and building a relationship because you're worried about him having to leave. I mean, no doubt. That's like I think something has to happen about this. I think there may not be one easy answer, and I do agree that players should be treated a certain way.
Yep.
But it's tough when, yeah, if they're only going to come for a semester, they don't like how little they've been playing, and then they want to leave. Like, where are the adults in that kid's life giving him that kind of advice? Like, that's not good advice either, in my opinion.
No. Like talking to college coaches and like they said, "Oh, we remember either when they played or when they started recruiting, a kid would show up and it was about the school, it was about everything else. Now when they show up, if it's I'm talking about division like big time, it's how much money am I about to make, and then they worry about everything else. I'm all for players being paid. That's not my issue whatsoever. You guys, I wish you all got paid back when you guys played. Like you deserve it, like all you guys deserve all that. It's the, like you said, semester leave, semester leave. I have a solution. Every college kid gets one free transfer just because you never, like you said, you never know. Like maybe it's 2 years in, it's something happens, they don't like they whatever. Everybody has a reason. I think one free one, unless your head coach leaves. So like just now with the Alabama stuff or resigns or everything else, then you get a second one. The whole going every year, I think needs to stop.
Yeah.
And that's my solution, but it's like I said, it's not going to work for everybody. But that's just my opinion. But
Yeah, I think it's reasonable, right? I mean, if you get one free chance to go somewhere, because if a college coach has a better opportunity somewhere else, they can go. Of
yeah,
course, that college coach is going to go with that opportunity, having that opportunity secured before he goes. Now the gamble is I'm gonna say I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna enter the portal and hope that I find a better opportunity. And
That's
if I
true.
don't, then
Yeah.
what happens? Then you're really screwed, right?
Right.
And I believe that one of the rules now is that the second school they transfer to, they're now responsible for the graduation piece of this. And
Okay. Yeah.
I think that one, and maybe that's not completely accurate, but I think that they're, the academic side of this is just as important as the football side. And some people are going to argue maybe more important, but I mean, we could argue that till we're blue in the face. But the fact of the matter is these kids go to college to get a degree.
Mhm.
And if it weren't for football, a lot of these guys may not even go. Like I probably wouldn't have gone to college had it not been for football. My mom probably wouldn't like hearing me say that, but I wasn't a tremendous student, right? I mean, these guys aren't getting 36 on their ACTs every year, I mean, and that's fine. But, it's not good for you academically to go from one school to another year after year if you've got to constantly relearn, the new amenities that they have for academics and all that and meeting new
Right.
teachers. That type of consistency is also a part of it as well. And yeah, college football is a business and they need to make money and win games and do that. But you also, to have the kids' best interest at heart, you got to do what it takes for them to graduate. And if we're constantly moving from one place to another, and maybe I take a class at this school and the credits don't transfer over to this school, now you're wasting time, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you're pissing away opportunities at that point. It's like, man, you need to get this degree. And I mean, we can argue how important college degrees are anymore, but if you're going to college, I mean, you're going to get a degree. So I think sometimes guys' priorities are out of whack, and maybe there's some good middle ground, and you hope that the NCAA is trying to find a solution to all that, but it's not going to make everybody happy. But I think a lot of people miss the old days of
Mhm.
building that team and you going to one school and graduating from that school, and I love the U of I, right? I love Illinois, and we give to Illinois, and we're Illini through and through in this household, orange and blue. I mean, if I didn't go there, would I still have the same feeling towards that school?
Right.
And could I ever really support one school over another if I've gone to three or four of them?
Mhm.
That'd be difficult.
Right. I always thought that too. Like, I wasn't really like, I'll use Bo Nix as an example. Not really mad at him. He was at Auburn for a little bit. Things kept changing. He goes to Oregon. That part, cool. Like, I can understand that. He still loves Auburn, loves Oregon. It's the ones that have four different schools. Like you said, like, did you really love that school? Where's the school pride anymore? Of, like you said, you're Illinois through and through. If you went to Florida, you probably would have been Florida through and through. Like, that was the
Yep.
school. Um, some of these guys that have been at the five or six schools in 6 years, you're like, wait, what? And now it's trickled down to like high school. Like they kind of see that and they kind of want to do the same thing of maybe not in Illinois, but I see it in California and other places. Like they're just going to go school to school. Well, this coach doesn't play me as much, or this coach yelled at me, or this coach said this, and then they move. And
Yeah.
so, like, I think that's why there's a coaching shortage too, like everywhere. Like I know in Illinois there's a bad coaching shortage, there's a ref shortage. I saw in Texas there were still like thousands of coaching jobs open and teaching jobs. You're like, oh, that stinks. Like it's just all kind of trickling down. College coaches, they're getting burnt out too. Like you said, we don't really feel bad if you're getting paid the big money. It's the one double A's, it's the division twos that are getting paid less than a teacher.
$24,000 a year, yeah.
Yeah. Those
Yeah.
type of people, talking to college coaches, they're like, yeah, there's not as many GAs. There's not as many people doing this anymore. High school, we're seeing that too. We had four coaches leave 2 years ago, and it took our head coach 7 months to find coaches, like almost till the next year, like to
Yeah.
find coaches. You just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
It's a tough business.
And I feel like, you probably say that for a lot of lines of work, right? I mean,
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
wants to do a lot of things anymore. And you don't know what to pinpoint that on. Is it a technology thing? Is it a culture thing? I mean, what is it? I mean, you'd hope that people just find something that they love to do and want to go pursue that. And, no matter what line of work you're in, whether it's coaching, teaching, uh, business, law enforcement, whatever, everybody has their BS that they have to deal with, right, in
Yep.
their job. A college coach's BS is different than mine. Mine is different from theirs, but it's just your ability to want to put up with that and to want to keep doing what it is that you're called to do. Because as you and I know, and a lot of your listeners know, this is a calling, what we get to do. I mean, we're not getting rich off of doing this. We love helping young people. We love football. We love winning games. I mean, to me, there's no greater drug in the world than trying to win a football game. I mean, just the
Mhm.
thrill that you get from doing that. So I don't know, but I think what it also tells me is that there's an opportunity for growth, right? There's an opportunity for a landslide of new officials and new coaches, and that maybe we're in the dark before the dawn stages of a new kind of era with all that. Where there's a shortage, that means there's an opportunity for more people to come and do it, and maybe there's a boom on the horizon for us because I don't see this going away, right? It's not
Right.
like we're not going to have high school, college, professional football, and it requires other people to want to step up and be part of it. So
Um, let's get back to you before I jump down another stupid rabbit hole. Uh, did you always know you wanted to coach? Was that just something that you always thought about, or did that develop later on in life?
no, I think that like I said, football has always been a driving part of my life. It's such an enormous part of who I am and always has been. Um, and I think that my parents, thank God, were never afraid to tell me that, you're only going to be able to play football for so long. Like you got
Right.
to have a plan for when your playing days are done. And I thought, well, what's an easier transition than from player to a coach? And really what I'm doing now is what I've always wanted to do. I always wanted to become the head football coach at QND. I wanted to take over for Bill Cannell, who coached me, and I have such a tremendous amount of respect for him and just the culture of our school and our Catholic identity and who we are. I in my sophomore year in high school in English class, we had to write an essay about a potential career that we wanted to have later in life, and I wrote about wanting to be the head football coach at QND. And probably at the time what I didn't appreciate was that really a career in coaching football is a career in education.
Mhm.
And if you would have told 15, 16-year-old me that I was going to become a teacher one day and I was going to be going to school every day and working in the school, I'd have thought, man, that doesn't seem like my character right now. But that's what it is. I mean, I'm a PE and health teacher at QND, and so I'm in a classroom every day with students and also getting to coach football. So I really am. I'm doing everything that I've wanted to do in the sense that I'm coaching football for QND, and the only way that I can do that is also to be a teacher. And really, honestly, the best way to do that, the best
Mhm.
coaches are the ones who are in the building with the kids every day and have that constant face-to-face interaction with them, and also coaching is teaching, right? So it all goes hand in hand. So. Yeah, I'd say I always wanted to become a football coach. I specifically wanted to coach where I'm coaching now.
Mhm.
Um, and I've got no plans of going anywhere at this point. My wife and I just welcomed our second child a couple weeks ago, and both my wife and I graduated from QND in 2007. We want the same for our children. So, I'm living the dream right now. Really, am as blessed as anybody could possibly be.
Well, congratulations on the baby, and you're spending time away from that to talk to
Thank
me.
you.
So I apologize for
She
that.
she's sleeping right now, so no big
Okay.
deal. That's why this is a perfect time.
Uh, I always feel bad when something like that happens to a coach. I'm like, and you're talking to the stupid guy in Illinois up in the suburbs. Like, come on now. You're taking away.
That's the life of coaching football, and I tell you, it's awesome because now, another one other of my goals in life, just to share a personal story with you. I wanted to play professional football, and
Yeah.
was very blessed to get to do that very, very briefly, but it was there nonetheless. And I've always seen you see these videos growing up of these players with their kids at training camp and playing with them on the practice field
Mhm.
after practice, and I always wanted that, and obviously didn't have a long enough NFL career to see that through, but now I can do that with my kids. And
Right.
my son's first two words were football and touchdown. And it's not, I swear, I was not trying to teach him how to say those words. That's just what he did. And he loves football. We play football and the baseball all the time. He puts his little helmet on and he comes and tackles me, and he has the time of his life. And he comes around practice and is with our guys. And, I just think for him to be able to grow up with that, I mean, my God, what an awesome way to
Right.
get to grow up around a football team. Obviously, our Catholic faith is intertwined with our school, and so all of that is such. I think what any parent, what I would want for my kid, and that's what he gets to have. So I'm sure our daughter will be the same. If she's going to be a dancer or a soccer player, whatever she wants to be, they're going to get to grow up right around QND, and so that's such a blessing.
Um, so you always knew you wanted to coach. At some point in your life, you knew you wanted to go back to your high school and coach. was there any trickiness to that? And what I mean by that is like your school has a culture, like, okay, this is a tradition or anything else when you take over. Was there any part of like, okay, we're going to keep some of this tradition or one part of this culture, but there's also what I want. Like for me, what I've learned at U of I or in the NFL or from any coach that you've had, like, was there any like, okay, we're going to do some of what I want to do. How do I build this culture up the way I want? And not saying the old way was wrong, but you have your own identity. Was there any trickiness to that, or did you kind of just flow into it?
I would say I flowed right into it. Honestly, this situation for me couldn't have been any better because I took over for the guy that I played for, who
Right.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for, who I learned so much from, and um, you know, obviously, I have had a football education outside of that that has given me a certain level of experience and things that I would want to do, and he's very supportive of that. And but I think to your point, there were so many positive culture aspects of our football program that I grew up loving. I grew up seeing in grade school, being a part of when I was in high school, and still supporting after the fact. That our motto when I took over was "New era, same tradition."
Okay.
So it's just
Yep.
a new coach. It's a new era of our football program, but it's going to be the same tradition. We're going to play great defense. We're going to have great fundamentals. We're going to work hard. We're going to raise respectful young men. We're going to be leaders in our community. We're going to try to be the best versions of ourselves every single day and let that translate to the field. We're not going to be afraid to back down from a challenge. I mean, anybody that follows our program and sees our schedule understands that we play a tremendously tough schedule. It's only going to continue to be tough now that we're going to join the Central State Eight next year. But no, there were, and I wouldn't say culture things that we changed. I think we just kept harping on those same things and did them
Uh,
our way. There wasn't anything that we got rid of. I think Coach Cornell is, like I said, a good friend of mine. I think he would be the first to tell you that maybe some of the things that he did at the end of his coaching career maybe were a little bit old school, and so we had to
mm,
change our mindset some. Um, we now play in the training camp era, right? You and I would have played in the two-a-day era. Now
right.
we coach in
Yep.
the training camp era.
Yep.
So these are two different types of preparation as far as your approach goes. So our summer is totally different now than what his summer was. I mean,
Right.
we have obviously working out year round and how we study film and how we limit the time that we're on the practice field is totally different than where before. It's like, all right, we'd be out there for 3 hours. You get 30 minutes of water break. Maybe we can have water bottles at every drill, so we don't have to take 10 minutes every, so often in practice. So those little changes like that. But no, I think that there were three other guys that interviewed for this job. None of them were Q&D guys. None of them played for Coach Cannell. I don't know how any of them would have been able to handle because Coach Cannell is still our athletic director. He's our dean of students. So he's in
Okay.
the building every day. And so I see him constantly. We work well together. And yeah, a lot of people told me you don't want to be the guy to replace the guy. But it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, but the guy that I'm replacing is my guy. Like I'm
Right.
his guy. Like I played here, I graduated here, I'm born and raised here. So no, I wouldn't say it was tricky at all. It certainly was. There was a lot to learn. I became a head coach after only coaching for like 3 years before that. So
Hmm.
I'm really like 10 years into my coaching career. So I'm very blessed and fortunate to have been available to take this job right at the same time that Coach Cannell's son graduates. And so I stepped in and it's really just been a blessing. Love going to work every day. The people that I work with, we all have the same values and see things generally the same way, and we all want to win, and we have great pride in QND.
Yeah, because like I said, I walked on Eastern. Wasn't for me. You get your butt kicked a few times, and you're just kind of like, people can call me weak, whatever they want, but it was mainly football's not fun. Like I couldn't even watch football on TV. Like it got to that point where I was
Yeah,
like, I hate this, and I was like, I can't do that. So I started coaching at my high school right away, traveling back and forth from Eastern back to like back and forth, 45
yeah,
minute drive. And it was very tricky going back to coach at my high school because it was like some of those kids I played with. So that was a little tricky. Like now you're yelling at them. You're seeing the old school way. That's the only way you know. And I guess from my experience, then when my head coach got let go, I started coaching at Charleston, start to see things the way they do it. Then we moved up to the suburbs. I coached at Glenbard East up here, saw how he did it, went to East Aurora, saw how he did it. Now I'm at Addison Trail High School, and it's just so I always like to ask people that because I learned so many different things, whether not to do it or to do it. And
yeah,
sometimes not to do it was better than learning how to do it, if that makes
no
sense.
doubt. It does, and I think there's value to that type of exposure that you've been and learned from all these different kinds of coaches. Like for me, I became an assistant coach under Bill Cornell, was his offensive line coach for 2 years, and then I was an assistant coach at Culver Stockton for a year before I got this job. So, other than my playing days, I don't have that same type of experience with other programs and other cultures. And obviously, as you know, like being a coach is totally different than being a player.
Yeah.
Um, there's still, was able to play for a lot of really, really good coaches, a lot of coaches that I learned a lot of things from. And like to your point, a lot of things that I don't want to do, a lot of things that I want to continue to do. And even like a lot of things, and I love it because sometimes when I'm coaching a kid and the words that I use or how I say it is the way that a coach that I played for would have done it and would have said
Mhm.
it. And for example, I was blessed to play for the Oakland Raiders and
Mhm.
uh, played for Coach Tony Sperano, who was in the NFL for a long, long time.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. And I mean, just the way that he talked to us. I mean, he's this, uh, Brooklyn, New
Mhm.
York Italian guy with the gold chain. And I mean, he's straight out of the Sopranos kind of guy, but just how he talks. And now I'll kind of use some of those same mannerisms and I catch myself thinking, I mean, that's how guys like that live on, and that's how I can kind of relive some of those days as well. But that just again goes to show you the impact that guys like that have on your life now and how it never stops. And now as a coach that you're doing that to these kids. So you got to
Yeah.
do everything you can. And yeah, there's going to be things that our players that I do that they don't like. Sometimes I may have a short temper. I get irritated sometimes, and I got to do better at that. There's always things that everybody can do better at, right? But um, yeah, I think that obviously you play for a lot of coaches or you coach alongside with other coaches and you see how they do things and you start to make it your own. So fortunately, I was able to have enough of that in a short amount of time
Mhm.
to give somebody the faith and confidence that I can lead a program and have been doing that now for 6 years.
Oh yeah. I mean, it would take me 15 minutes to explain everywhere I've been. That was just football coaching. I coached at Charleston Middle School for basketball, Charleston High School basketball. Oh God. Then up here, I've coached at Equal Valley High School for basketball. I coached at York High School for baseball. I've been,
Yeah,
and this
life of a coach.
Addison Trail was the first time though that I have been in the building and coached football in the building at the same time. Like it was the very
Yeah,
first time. I was always outside. Charleston, I was a college kid. I was a 23, 24-year-old OC, like coming in, like
yeah.
thinking I knew it all, and realized very quickly you know nothing when you're that young and you're calling plays because you think you're just going to walk out there and call plays. You think you're just going to pull things that you see on Saturday and like I remember one time my play sheet was like 3 pages and I sat down and I'm like, this is a lot, but I could do this. And then you're like, well, wait a minute. And so I've been all over the place. So I have pulled from basketball coaches, baseball coaches, football coaches, and just kind of because I'm the run game coordinator now, which fancy way of saying you're the old line coach, but it's just like
Yeah.
yours. I just pulled from everybody. So I like to ask people that because I've been all over the place. I pull things from everybody. They all have different views, they all have different ways of doing things. And the big thing is I've learned how to be new school, I guess, in today's world. Like I remember getting to Glenbard East and he let the kids bring a speaker out to practice. And I looked at him and I was like, you allow this? Like I've never been at a place that allowed this. Like, oh hell no, we ain't bringing a speaker, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, Steve, I'm old school, but I have to be old school, new school. He goes, I'm old school, but I have to be. Like if it's a bad practice, like we're goofing off or like an hour into it, I can already tell old school comes out.
Mhm.
He's like, but we have to cater to the new school of like, hey, if this speaker and they play their stupid music makes them have a good practice, I'm all for it. Like that type of thing, just for a small example. And some of the kids always be like, oh, that's no fun, Steve over there. He doesn't want the speaker because I'm like, this is stupid. I don't want this, or whatever it was. So I've
Every,
learned.
every team, every team needs a no fun Steve. Sometimes I'm the no fun Steve on our team. I'm the biggest bad guy there is when it comes to that stuff. But you're right.
um, and then the new school I've done is how I've gone about practice with my guys. And what I mean by that is Coach Tony Holler, Feed the Cat stuff. He's right down the road. He lives like 10 minutes down the street from me. And one thing I learned during COVID was I didn't understand what he was doing. I was like, wait a minute. or like Coach Dixon, he's right at Camp Point, right down there and stuff like that. Like, I don't get what he's doing. I don't understand it. Like, it doesn't make sense. We all grew up in 3-a-days, 2-a-days. This doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And for some reason this year it all clicked. And I said, okay, new school. My old linemen are not going to hit as much in practice depending on what we're doing. And my head coach goes, what do you mean? And I said, okay, we can't two platoon. Like, some of our guys have to practice defense just in case. So we split it.
Yeah.
I have to look and see what the D line's doing. So if the D line is going before us and I see they're doing a lot of hitting and one on one, if I see they've got inside run and team and blah, 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 when I get to the old lineman, okay, we're going to hit bags. We're hitting bags, working on our footwork. We're going to work on our mental part of it because we also have inside run and team. That's a lot of hitting. And this was the first year I did it. And I have a senior who started since he was a sophomore. The first 2 days we did it, he goes, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Last year's Coach Steve and the year before and the year before, we'd be hitting one on one. We're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. You're yelling, you're hooping and hollering. Like, what's going on here?" And I said, "Oh, I want your guys' bodies fresh. I think we have a team that can make the playoffs. Like, we got to be healthy and everything else." And he goes, "I want to hit people." I'm like, "That's good. Hit them in team. That's good.
Yeah.
Wait for that." And then if I saw D line was doing more walkthroughs, then I would go down with my old lineman and do more of like, okay, put the hand shields down. Now we're going to thud a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it helped because this was my time at Addison Trail has been since COVID. Every year, I never went more than 2 games in a row with the same starting O line. Somebody was always
Oh
getting
wow.
hurt. Somebody was
Yeah.
always whatever. Whether they played defense and they got hurt, whether it was me. This year was the first time I went 5 in a row with the same lineman. The only reason why, like that 6-1, I didn't was because mom and dad took him out of town for the weekend and we couldn't do anything about it. Like, it was that type of thing.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But we were all healthy. And I would always ask the guys at halftime, "Hey, how do we feel?" We're like, "We feel pretty fresh. Like, we feel pretty good." So I was hoping there was something to that, like the new school way of like,
Yeah.
like, and I don't punish them by running anymore. It's not doing up downs. It's not running. I now do the mental thing where I'm like, "Hey, go sit in the corner over there and just watch us practice." And now some
Put him in
therapist,
timeout.
yeah, some therapist or psychologist like, "Hey, that's not good on their mental state." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't know football. Go sit over there and
Yeah.
watch."
Yeah.
I
Have
don't make
that
them,
therapist try to teach somebody to block a three technique, right?
or the damn four eyes that I love to see all
Or
the
the
time.
four eyes. Yeah. It's
So
funny you say that because yeah, Brad's a good friend of mine as well. You mentioned Camp Point right down the
yeah,
street from us, and it's been really fun to watch his success and his growth over time and how he's taken. I mean, Camp Point football has never been. They've been good, right? But now they're dominating. I mean, they're really winning at a level that is very, very much the result of the policies and things, the culture that Brad Dixon has brought in.
yep,
And I dig it. I dig all that. And I think for us at Q&D, maybe we don't feed the cats necessarily, but I think that it's the same type of mentality and that less is more these
yep,
days.
yep,
And I love the way that Brad Dixon puts it. He says leaving meat on the bone, right? They may practice team defense for like 10 minutes and then be
uh-huh,
done. And they've got those guys, like you said, that want to hit somebody. So they leave some meat on the bone. And I dig that. And I think for us and in my experience, uh, our age, we're at like the perfect age where we saw the NFL what it was before this new
uh-huh,
CBA and what it is now. We remember the NFL before Roger Goodell bungled all the concussion stuff and what it's like now. And when we were growing up, it was 2-a-days and it was, run them as hard
yep,
as you can and build that mental toughness, this, that, and the other. And there's certainly, I believe there's something to that. Maybe not the mindless conditioning at the end of practice. Yeah, we've
right,
never done
right,
that unless they've done something really egregious to piss you off, which
right,
teenage boys are capable of doing that for sure. But when I got in college, 2-a-days were going by the wayside. At Illinois, we
uh-huh,
would have
yep,
2-a-days, but it would be an every other day thing, right? We could have
yep,
a two-a-day on a Monday, but then a one-a-day on a Tuesday.
uh-huh.
And as a side, I liked 2-a-days better in college because 2-a-day days that had more opportunities to take naps than just the one day. The one day practices, you were in meetings all day and you weren't taking many naps, but 2-a-days, you're
Right.
going to get a couple of solid naps in, but that's neither here nor there. But 2011 was my last season in college, and that was when the CBA expired in the NFL, and that was
Mhm.
when they had the lockout and all that. So then my rookie year, when I get to Baltimore, that was a new CBA. Two-a-days were no longer a thing. You could only be on the practice field for like 2.5 or 3 hours,
Mhm.
and you could meet for a certain amount of time, and the days all started the same. And so it didn't matter if you were in San Diego, California, or you were in Buffalo, New York. I mean, everybody was on the same schedule. What you did with those hours, that was, based on your coaching decisions and all
Mhm.
that. But
Right.
you weren't out there for very long, and you had to go from one thing to the next, and there wasn't a lot of downtime. And even in college, it was that way. Like
Mhm.
Zook's big thing was, if you don't know where to go, just start running and we'll get you there. Stand fast was what he'd always say. And a lot of guys didn't understand that. He would say, sleep fast and stand fast. And we're like, I don't know what
Mhm.
that means, coach, but you're saying it, so we're going to try. But there was no wasted time in practice, which is
Right.
exactly what we want to have now. Like now, the longest practice we'll have is 2 hours. In the summertime, it's an hour, hour and a half, maybe. And yeah, we're not beating guys to death. We're not, we still do the inside run drills and team
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. And we'll push a sled and we'll do one-on-ones and, the circle drill type of stuff and that kind of thing. But we're not going to line up and run 30 plays a team and
Mhm.
practice and tackle each
Yep.
other the whole time. I mean, that stuff certainly has gone by the wayside. And,
Yep.
while I can dig they put like a brand on it, the feed the cats thing, and that makes it so relatable to coaches now. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, and it's obviously very successful at what it does. But it is still crazy to me that there's teams out there that will go for 3 hours a day. And I even knew this before Brad started talking about this. When I'd see another team doing static stretch before the game, man, I'd get excited because just as an athlete, that's not going to get them fast and ready to go. But um, it's changed, and I think that for me personally, it's going through that regimented experience of the NFL and college, and only having a
Mhm.
certain amount of hours in the day to be doing anything, and you got to make sure you maximize that. Um, and even now, our off the field stuff we do with meetings and watching film
Yep.
and all that takes up the majority of our time anymore,
Right.
and not just practice. But yeah, it's just a never ending deal. And I think you and I are in the same boat. I mean, we don't have a lot of guys that go both ways. We got to be creative with how we get guys ready and how we deliver them to the game. And it just forces you as a coach to be that much more organized. And if you're not organized during the week, if you're not organized during the year, how the hell are you going to be organized on game day?
Right. Because I remember, I mean, you do too. I remember, I think it was 2007, maybe. School started way later. You were graduated, but I think it was 2007. I was a junior, maybe. We had 2 or 3 weeks of two-a-days just because school started later and football started at the same time. That was awful. You
Yeah,
talk, you talk about being terrible. And then my senior year, which would have been the 2008 season, because I graduated 2009, that was the you're only allowed 4 or 5 days. Like it was like football started on a Monday or Tuesday, and you only had that week of two-a-days, and it had to go be one.
yeah,
That's when it phased out. But I remember
yeah,
starting to coach. I coached at my high school. Two-a-days were still kind of a thing. Then when I got to Charleston, that's when it kind of changed the hours. Like you could go 3 hours if you wanted to, but then like or 2.5 hours, but then the next day had to be like an hour and a half or something like that.
yeah,
And the kids I coached didn't know what two-a-days were, and I remember calling them like, "Oh, you're soft. You don't know what two-a-days are." And then now I look back at it, and I'm like, "Well, let's see. My back hurts, my knee hurts, my ankles hurt. Maybe there was something to not. Maybe there is something to
yeah.
not be doing that. Like,
There's an infinite amount of ways to make practice and training camp hard without beating their brains in,
mhm,
whether that's getting them there earlier in the day and ending, earlier in the day, or, giving them more stuff to think about and watching film and, the exercises and the filler in between times that you could do. But yeah, I mean, now for us, we're actually the first high school in the state to start the school year. So we start very early compared to everybody else.
uh,
When two-a-days open on that Monday, I think this year was like August 8th or whatever. Well, we're starting school on August 10th. So we get 2 days where we don't have anything else going on. And that's like our only real training camp days.
right,
Part of it to me too is also like it's supposed to be hard. Like you don't want it to be easy. You don't want it to be impossible. You don't want to run kids off. That's not the kind of hard that I'm talking about. But to me, the toughness factor and the difficulty of football was part of the experience that I enjoyed looking back on it. Like it's not fun in the meantime, but once you go through that with your friends and your boys, it's like, man, we did this, you know.
Yeah.
That builds camaraderie, you know, going through that type of adversity builds camaraderie almost better than anything else does. And so
Right.
we try to mimic that as best we can in on the Monday and Tuesday, but then school gets going and obviously other priorities take over. But um, yeah, like I said, it's just a matter of being smart with your time. And in the NFL, I mean, that's all they could do was being very regimented with their time, and so that just kind of naturally was how things made sense in my brain.
Right. Or like, I mean, for us, we look at mental toughness now. It's like, okay, you got a minute left, you got to score. Like, put them in pressure situations, and you just make it random. Like, it could be at the end of, it could be right in the middle of defensive time. All right, team, and you just all of a sudden blow the whistle. It's crazy. Like, hey, go. We're gonna put you in a pressure situation. There's 10 seconds left. They can't score. Like, I think that's how our toughness has changed. Like, are you really tough because you can hit for an hour straight or 2 hours straight, or are you mentally tough as a team because you just got put in that situation on the fly? You didn't complain, you didn't moan, you just went out there. And if we score, okay, well, then as a coach, you go, okay, we did it in the middle of our defensive time. We still have team. Now we can fix it. Like, do you see, guys, what happened? Like, you never know. Like, our offense could turn the ball over, or defensively, hey, they could score. Now we got to go down and score, or we got to get a field goal, like random. And that type of mental pressure situation to put them in.
Being situationally aware,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Because I think that, and that's also like practices in the NFL are mainly you got your team periods, your red zone, inside run, and all that, but there also is a lot of emphasis on situation, and you got to be able to think in certain situations and react to any kind of sudden change. And you know, I like that same what you said about just throwing a situation out in the middle of the team and going, and if there's a mistake, fix it right because you still got time after the fact to do that. But you know, situationally is something that we always try to get better and better at every year to stay locked in the situation in the game. And it's
Mhm.
hard for guys in college and the pros to do it, let alone high school kids to be locked into, okay, it's third down, third and long, you know, the ball's on this yard line. I mean, the score is this, like they got to make, you know, this many yards or whatever. Like guys aren't really thinking like that. They're just kind of reading and reacting.
Mhm.
So for us, you know, trying to put more emphasis on that, you know, that to me is how you make the game hard now. That's how you
Yeah.
make the
Yeah.
preparation hard now. How can you perform physically while also being sharp mentally? Like that's really what it's at. Whereas before it was just all about let me make you as tough or make you as physically demanding as I can so that you will be the physically superior athlete when you get to the game. Now with the rules the way they are, you got to be the smarter player. The smarter players are going to be the ones that are the most prepared and the most likely to win.
Yeah. And real quick to poke fun, the static stretching or even the moving stretching, I can't stand it no more. Like all that stuff. Our strength coach, God bless him, he's young. He interned at Northwestern for like a year and a half. So everything we
Ugh.
do is like what they do. And so 2 years ago, I could put up with it. This year because I got more into the why are we doing this type of thing. Like I would rather take the O line and just slowly walk through things right at the beginning of practice for 5 minutes, then we get going, because to me that's the ultimate movement. Or like, hey, today the D line can go do stuff. They're moving, they're moving around. They don't need to stretch or do the Frankenstein walks and do this and do this. Like to me, that's getting them tired before we even do
Yep.
anything else, which is not how we all grew up. We all grew up like this is what you have to do. And I'm like, nah, just move around. We don't have
Yeah.
to. And so every single day in practice, I walked out there. This flex period's stupid. This flex period is stupid, just every day. And the head coach finally said, well, what should we do? I'm like, more productive things. Why are we doing? But I will say this, uh, not last year, but the year before, because he had connections to Northwestern, we got to go watch a practice. We got to go to there and watch. I'm a U of I guy, so when we walked on, I'm like, am I allowed to be standing here and watching this?
Yeah. Yep.
And great facilities. Fitzgerald was awesome. He came up and just talked to us like a normal guy. Talked to us for like he gave us the time of day. Talked to us for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Um, Come up to us every 20 minutes or so during practice. You guys good? You guys need anything? Here's our practice script. Walk around, be a part of the drill, do whatever. Like he was awesome. Gave us a tour. Um, I didn't see any shady stuff going on, and that's all I'll say about that. I'm like, I don't.
Huh.
There was nothing there, but But the practice, my main point is I watched their practice and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. We do the exact same thing. So that's where this guy's getting it from. Like if we're doing
Yeah.
exactly what they do. And I hate it so much. Like, I'm like, I always said it to them, like, oh yeah, let's get tired before the game. Let's get tired this year. And they're like, Steve,
Yeah.
shut up. Shut up. Because they'd watch my O line warm up. Back in the day, you break off, O line down here. We're hitting right before the game. You're doing all that stuff. This year, they come down with me. Okay, guys, we're just gonna real quick. Wide zone steps here. Remember this. Inside zone steps right here. We're gonna walk through a couple plays just to remember, like, hey, we're gonna see this 3-5, 3-3 stack. They're going to move here, remember, just real quick. And then we go off to the sideline and we just watch everybody else do their thing for like 10 minutes. And I could hear people in the stands. What are they doing? And I want to turn around like, we're resting, we're resetting our bodies. What are you talking about? It's just all different.
You don't need to go and get your heart rate up because if, as any young man that's worn a helmet and shoulder pads will tell you before you go out of the field, your heart's going. I mean, you're pumping. And
Mm-hmm.
especially those early season games, like, for us this year, the first game of the year, we're playing Quincy High. I mean, it was 130
Yeah.
degrees all week,
Yeah.
like it was stupid hot, stupid hot. And it's like, we think about, all right, what do we need to do for our pregame warm up? Like, we really don't need to do anything.
No,
You
no.
go stand outside for 5 minutes and you're sweating,
Yeah.
like,
Or just,
we'll throw some, right?
yeah.
We'll run some plays. Like, you got to get that stuff loosened up. But I mean, you really don't need to go through a line of stretching. I mean, my God, you just spend any amount of time out there. Now, when you go through the season, you get into the postseason, all that. I mean, that's a different deal when it's a little bit colder. But like in Baltimore, and this I think probably blows a lot of people away. In Baltimore, we didn't have a team stretch, right? There was no team flex period, and I think the thought was that you only have 2.5 hours to be on the practice field, and we're going to make all 2.5 of those
Yep.
hours count for football. Everybody warm up on your own. Everybody do your own thing. I mean, you're professionals. You know how to take care of your body. You do that, and then when the horn blows, we're going to start.
Right.
And obviously, we can't expect high school kids to warm themselves up on their own. But I mean, there's certainly you don't need to sit there and run them to death. One of the biggest mistakes that I ever made in my coaching career, and I'll never forget as long as I live. Our dynamic warm up that we do before practice and games are the same, but a little bit different. My
Mhm.
first ever game as a head coach, we play at Lexington High School in Missouri, and this small country school. I mean, their grass is how tall? It's really hot outside, and I tell our strength guy to put him through the whole warm up. And in hindsight, that was just the actual stupidest thing I could have done. Basically, put him through a conditioning test before the game even started. But it's like, not even half. And we just did a quarter of what we just did. We're fine. And we don't need to be
Yeah.
out there for 2 hours before a game going and doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
But again, the less is more these days. I mean, these kids, you give them too many stretches to do anyway. They're going to start to half-ass it through the stretch as it is. Like, it's counterproductive. It's not going to do them any good anyway.
Yeah. I'm hoping that I've complained enough. I called her or whatever you want to call it enough to where we don't do it this year because um, I don't care if I call this other tradition Addison Trail before I even got here. We didn't do it for 2 or 3 years. Now we started doing it. They used to go in and do like power cleans and stuff for reps before the game, and that was like the strength thing. And I would never forgive. They came back and started doing it this year. And I walked in, I go, what the hell are they doing in there? And they're like, oh, they're doing the tradition and then doing that. And I'm like, yeah, let's lift as heavy as possible for reps before we go play a football game. And I got really upset. I got mad. And then they're like, why don't you be the strength coach? I was like, I will. We won't be doing that. But we did win games after doing it. So they were like, see, we're winning games. I'm like, or is it because or we're not beating them up during the week? We could, it's apples and oranges. Like, come on now. Like, which
Yeah.
one like, because I got guys, think about it. Would you want to go do that before going and hitting for a quarter or two? I'm like, no, I don't want to go do that.
Yeah, whenever I got under a bar, I always wanted to push myself and I wanted to lift the heaviest possible weight. And I couldn't imagine doing that before, going to a game. That would definitely be, I think certainly the science that's coming out with lifting on game day is something that I can get behind, not lifting for reps or for weight or anything like that. But, movement is good. And especially
Yeah.
when you got a generation now of kids that want to play Fortnite all day. I mean, these guys need a little bit extra to go. It's funny when before the second round playoff game, and I probably speak for every coach in the state in the country rather that experienced this. We played Nashville the second round of the playoffs on Saturday, and on Friday, like during the school week, I hear kids start to talk about Fortnite again, and haven't
Mhm.
heard Fortnite get talked about in a long time, right?
Yep.
So then at our team dinner, now everybody is talking about the new Fortnite game is coming out tonight, and
Yep.
all I could think about was, oh man, what a bad night for this game to come out
Yep.
for everybody playing the next day on Saturday. Like your kids, you tell them to go to sleep, and you just hope that they are. But um, like I said, anything to get these kids moving though is going to be a good thing, I think.
Oh, thank goodness, because I remember that the second round. Good thing we played on the Friday, so we didn't have to.
In hindsight, that's when we should have played was on Friday, but that's not why we lost. Nashville beat us. That they were a really good football team that day, but I would be remiss if I didn't think that that had at least something to do with it. I
Well,
don't know.
coach, it was because the old map from the original game was coming back. The kids were telling me, like, "Hey, when the game
Oh, is
first,"
that what it was?
because I remember the game. I was a playing Call of Duty guy. I remember that came out, and they said, "Oh, the original map's coming back," and blah 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 blah. Coach Steve, you got to hop on and play with us. And I was like, "Guys, we have to play Lombardi. We have to play this school in the second round. I'm not. I don't care that a game is coming out. Like, I want to do this." And so,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, it comes out Friday night, and I was like, "Well, good thing you got work Friday night because we got to play at
Whew.
7 o'clock."
Yeah, yeah. In hindsight, we should have scheduled that game for Friday, but yeah. I mean, then again, these are things that old school coaches never had to deal with. I mean, yeah, it just again goes to show that everybody's got their own stuff and they got to put up with whatever their job is at any given time. So, but it's still a blessing to get to work with these kids and coach them and help teach them these lessons. I mean, that's really at the end of the day what you do it for.
Right. Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on. I kind of went over my hour thing, but I appreciate you coming on. Uh, Thank you for your service to the University of Illinois for playing football there.
Oh man, well, I appreciate you having me on, Steve. It really means a lot. I thank you for what you do and talking to all the different coaches that you talk to, and keeping our sport going. So it's great that you are getting to do this, and two Illini just breaking it down right here. I mean, what could be better than that on a Saturday morning, right?
Yeah, well, I guess I should apologize for the Alabama thing behind me, I guess, but
Well, it's an interesting time to be an Alabama fan now, right? I mean, I don't know if they like this guy that they just hired or not, but no, we know where your allegiances lie. There's only really one sign on here that we can see the full thing, and that's the orange and blue one there to your left. So
well, okay, I'll really stop after this. I'm a fan of coaches, so I was a Nick Saban fan way before Alabama. I
fair
knew I wanted
enough.
to coach when I was 15, 14 years old. I was like, this is what I want to do. So I started becoming fans of coaches. So when people move around, like that's where I followed. He just happened to be there the longest. And I put this up there also because people call me bandwagon. So I put up there to piss them off. I'm like, well, there it is.
Lean into it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm going to lean right into it. But like you said, why do you think there's Illinois, Illinois, Illinois? There's more Illinois than ever.
Yep, a lot of orange and blue on that wall right there.
Yeah. Well, Coach, again, appreciate you coming on here.
You bet, Coach. I appreciate it. Thank you. All the best.